Hey. Happy Monday, everybody. If you are hopping in here, get those likes up, hit the like button, tag anybody, share this with someone that you think may find it interesting, and happy Monday. Guys, if you want to show support to the show, if you like what we are about, please do so. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. Also, I'll be sure to acknowledge all chats, so be sure to show some support, show some love. As always, support your favorite content creators. I'll do my best to bring you guys content that's entertaining, educational, informative, all that stuff. But this is a group effort. I depend upon your support to keep this going. So share some love, show some love if you like what we're doing here. Anyway, so I want to get into today's topic. Let's just get right into it. So I asked the question, are Black men to blame for the mass shooting that happened in Buffalo, New York? By now, I'm sure all of you guys are very familiar with the whole scenario, really the whole massacre, the terrorist attack. It is, it's just horrible. I don't know how else to put it. It is a horrible event. It's been horrible to watch, and it's devastating. I don't know how else to put it. So you guys have heard of it. You're pretty familiar with what's going on. I'm sure by now. 18-year-old basically walks into a predominantly Black neighborhood grocery store and just opens fire on just innocent victims, killing altogether 10 people, or at least 10 people to my understanding. And yeah, it was racially motivated. It was completely racially motivated. There's no question about it. He wrote a 180-page manifesto, which I'm going to go a little bit into later on in this broadcast. But yeah, he wrote a 180-page manifesto where he basically was talking about that, yes, this attack was completely racially motivated. I think there are some sources that are saying that he actually intended to do more. He wanted to not just sit at the grocery store, but go and open fire in just the streets of this predominantly Black neighborhood. So he was completely open about his motive. So that happened, and in the manifesto he said clearly that he doesn't have any assailants. He didn't have anybody that he was working with. This is something that he did on his own. Now, he had people he looked up to. He had different people who influenced him, but this was something that he decided to take upon himself to do. This is what he said in his manifesto. Now, what's interesting is, I was looking through some of the different reviews, some of the different reports. I saw this conversation come up, and I saw something that as I think, this conversation that is obviously this white man terrorist. Really, that's what he is, and he even called himself a terrorist. Him who was responsible for doing this attack on innocent victims that was racially motivated. He is solely responsible. It was interesting that I started to see that, this topic, this whole scenario somehow start to be shifted towards how Black men were responsible. Now, I will say this. I didn't see this everywhere. I didn't see this in all cases. But I started to run across this whole topic of, are Black men responsible? Are Black men responsible for this guy, for this whole terrorist attack? And I'm just like, how are they even in this scenario? How is that even a thing when we already know who is responsible for doing this? So I wanted to get into this whole question a little bit, because I think what we're seeing now, let me see. Hey guys, you guys have got a little bit distracted here. I see Snugs. When are you going to drop the link so we can talk? Snugs, okay. Well, we'll see. I have a few things I'm going to go over, and then if time permits, and if I get enough support, I will definitely drop the link. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? For those of you guys who are hopping in here, hit the like button. Hit the like button. Show some support. So, okay. So again, circle back. I want to go through this whole: are Black men to blame for the Buffalo mass shooting? I think first of all, your average person, I think, who has any common sense are going to say, absolutely no. This was not a Black man who did this. This was a racially motivated terrorist attack against Black people, period, from a white nationalist. So this should not be a controversial question. This should be a pretty easy question to answer. This should be just a slam dunk. With that said, though, the reason I asked this question is because I started to see this narrative being tossed around that although this was a white man, a white, really terrorist, white nationalist, who actively went and was actively going and killing people in the name of saving the race, who was actively going and targeting Black people, actively going to kill Black men and women. That was his target. Knowing that, I started to see the conversation shift towards, okay, one, either are Black men responsible for this, or completely shift. Okay, I'm trying to think how I can describe this. Actually, no, let me just bring this up. Let me bring this up because I'm having a hard time putting to words the level of insanity I started to see around this whole topic. And I want you guys to see it before I dig into it. Let me see. Yeah, I see blame Black. Yeah. Let me see. Let me just bring this up. Because I think instead of me trying to discuss it, let me just show y'all the receipts. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Where's it going? Where are you going? Okay. All right, I'm pulling it. I'm just gonna pull up the receipts. I think this is gonna make this easy. Instead of me trying to. Okay, so this is some of the stuff that I started to see. Now let me just be clear. I don't think this is the majority narrative. I don't think most people in their right mind, at the very least, are going around and saying that Black men are responsible for the mass shooting. At least I hope that is not the case. With that said, though, I saw some different things floating around. I started to see tweets like this, comments like this, that somehow shifted focus away from the perpetrator or away from the criminal to Black men. And I'm scratching my head and I'm saying, wait, huh? So let me just read into it so you guys can get a sense. Here it says, okay, I'm confused. Buffalo, New York, as many Black men in the parking lot on the corner of Utica Street, and you all let a white man walk in a Black neighborhood grocery store where our senior shop and you suckers did nothing. You'll kill each other on some sucker-ish. Where TF are the men? So here you notice the emphasis and the focus is not on the perpetrator or not on the person who actually committed the crime. The emphasis is on the Black men who were there, or just the collective of Black men, period, who had nothing to do with actually motivating the terrorist. So notice that. Now here's another one. It says, men of the issue, race is a distraction at this point, playing devil's advocate. So again, in response to this whole mass shooting that has been proven time and time again to be racially motivated, we have some people saying, no, actually, race is a distraction. It's really not that big of a deal. This was not motivated by race. This is a distraction. Actually, this is Black men's fault. This is kind of what I'm saying. This is kind of what I'm saying. Here's some other things that I was seeing again too. You started to see some people, how do you put it? You started to see some people basically thanking the police for keeping the perpetrator, the terrorist, alive. And here it reads, I want to commend Buffalo police for not killing the shooter. We have a system to punish him and they did the right thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So here's an individual who was thanking the police for bringing the shooter, the attacker, the murderer alive. She was thanking him. Now I wanted to put this next to a picture really quick. Just so you guys can get a sense. You can get a visual sense of how sometimes law enforcement treats Black folks. Here we see heavily armed white man arrested, unarmed, obviously George Floyd, murdered. Heavily armed, arrested white men, Breonna Taylor, unarmed, murdered. Heavily armed white men arrested, unarmed, murdered. And the list goes on. We can go on and on of the situations where Black unarmed people get murdered and heavily armed white people in these situations or white criminals get in, get in, are taken into custody alive and well. So it's interesting. I started to see this narrative. So now, why is this important? Again, I'm going to reiterate that I do not think that the majority of people, or at least I hope not, that the majority of people are in their right mind believing Black men are to blame for this crime. It's like, obviously not. This was racially motivated. But what I want to call your attention to is how sometimes there is such a need sometimes, and such a willingness to overlook the obvious and to overlook what is plainly happening here, which is the fact that there is a white man who was motivated by bigotry, white supremacy, and hate towards Black people. Obviously, hate towards all people of color, period. But in this case, Black people. The fact that that's the thing that's what motivated it. Period. That is what motivated it. What I have seen, what many of us have seen in this media, I feel like is it being somewhat downplayed. And sometimes, what is that one term? I think it was, I saw printing, was it Wachovia or whatever? I started to see that come up. They started talking about Wachovia, started talking about previous attacks that were happened from Black individuals that had previously attacked people. You start hearing terms like, oh, the what is it? The suspect, or the assailant, or the lone ranger, or this person was mentally ill. You start kind of seeing these different words, or you're seeing this framing basically that I think is trying to remove people away from the fact that, hey, this actually was a racially motivated crime, period. Now, I think even more importantly, I want you to focus your attention on the fact that even today, we have Black women, I think, who still, when it comes to race and when it comes to understanding the seriousness of white supremacy, are slow to understand it. Either they don't want to understand it, they don't think it's a big threat, or they undermine it. And I think, when I started to see some of the reaction, I started to see even some of the silence, the silence from different larger female platforms about this attack that essentially left Black men and Black women deceased. And I saw how there was an unwillingness to call a spade, to call a thing what it is. Here they're talking about it and saying, oh no, it's Black men's fault. Here it's saying, oh well, no, it's no, this isn't about race. This is about something else. The other one is saying, oh, thank you for bringing him alive. And yet we're tiptoeing around this whole topic, or we're tiptoeing around the reality that this was actually motivated by white supremacy. And this brings me to my bigger point. This guy, this 18-year-old man, was radicalized, and he said himself, he was radicalized over the last few years to basically save his race. As I mentioned before, I read his 180-page manifesto, and honestly, to me, I think it was very telling. It was very telling, and it was also very revealing about essentially what is going on today. And while what he did was absolutely and totally unfathomable, and I think disgusting, at the end of the day, he represents a growing trend of a threat that's happening in America to this day. There's really no other way to put it. He represents a growing trend, right, of white supremacists who, at the end of the day, see Black people, who see people of color, period, as threats. It just is what it is. And I think when that is not acknowledged, or when it's not addressed for what it is, and there is an incessant need to either tiptoe around it, maybe just blame Black men, just say, oh, well, it was just a runoff. It's really not that bad. Racism isn't really a thing anymore. And you kind of downplay it for what it is. That is incredibly dangerous. So, like I said, he killed Black men and Black women. I want to reiterate that he targeted Black people specifically. And again, why is this important? Because while there is this rift, and there is this, whether you want to call it an online gender war, or it's a real gender war, or attention, whatever it may be, at the end of the day, unfortunately, People who have that mindset, who hold that really demonic, quite frankly, white supremacist mindset, do not make a distinction between a black man or a black woman. Do not make a distinction between, oh, well, black woman, they're over there, I'll leave them alone. But a black man, it's like, no. They're seeing you as a collective of invaders. This is how you're seeing you as. And we saw that in that attack clearly. He clearly laid it out in his manifesto. And instead of it being calling a spade, I'm seeing such a mixed reaction behind it. And again, to me, I think that speaks to the fact that there's still, at the end of the day, some people who do not want to grapple with the fact that white supremacy, as it is today, is still alive and well. It's still alive and well. We can try to dance around it. You can try to underplay it and say it doesn't exist. It's not that big of a deal. Race isn't a problem. Race never affects me. We can try to underplay it, but whether you believe it or not, it is still real. It is still alive and well. And by the way, it is radicalizing young boys who become young men to do crazy things. So again, if you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on your show. This is someone that you think may find it interesting. Also, if you like what's going on here, show support to the show. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo. Shout out to Hakeem for the 15 on the Cash App, by the way. What's going on, Hakeem? It's good to have you here. Okay, so I want to go over. I'm going to go over a few points that I actually noticed in the manifesto. It was, like I said, it was 180 pages, so I'm not going to bring it up, but I kind of took some notes, and I wrote down a few things to me that I think are worth highlighting and worth mentioning. And again, I want you, especially Black women, I want Black women to take note, because the reason I'm saying this is because I don't think it's really popular or fun to talk about this kind of things on femininity channels. I think it's a lot funner to talk about, I don't know, Lori Harvey and, how she came under fire a few days ago about her posting her diet tips. That's a lot more fun. There's fun in talking about vacations and luxury trips and new outfits. And I think there's a place for that. I absolutely do. But the reality is, again, while we're doing that and while we're kind of, have our head up in the clouds, there are real things that are happening that are impacting men and women. And I think at the very least, it should be acknowledged for what it is so that you should plan accordingly. So I'm going to bring up a few points that I want to highlight that I think are incredibly important to take note. And it's I think his manifesto is very revealing to an ideology that is alive and well today. Again, I want to reiterate, he took these things to an extreme, but he represents a movement of people who are still here, who at the end of the day just want power, period, or want to maintain power. Take that or leave it for how you will, but know that it does exist. So again, thank you, Hakeem, for the Cash App. I appreciate you. Also, shout out to Dapper Gents. Good to see you here. Good to see you here. Good to see you here. So guys, for those of you who are hopping on, we're not only are we impacting this question, are Black men to blame for the Buffalo shooting? We're going over a few points that I noticed in the manifesto. I think at the end of the day, most people in their right mind are going to say, obviously, no, Black men are not to blame for the Buffalo shooting. This was a person. This was a white supremacist that decided to do this because he was mostly racially motivated. Clear cut, end of story. But the reason I asked that question is because what I started to see was, I think, essentially a dancing around of the issue. A dancing around of the fact that this was a young white man who was radicalized, right, by white supremacist talking points to target people, period, to target them as invaders. And I think the reason this is uncomfortable for certain people is because it causes us to reckon with the fact that in a post-racist society where slavery was however many years ago and civil rights movement, whatever, in the society that's supposedly post-racism, whatever, racism is still alive and well. Some people just do not want to accept that, or they're not willing to accept the gravity of what it is. And unfortunately, it takes situations like this for people to reckon with that. And I think especially for women, it's important that we at least recognize what is going on, not necessarily so that you can fearmonger, but so that you cannot have your heads in the cloud and act like Black girl magic is going to be accepted everywhere, because it's just not. You can do your Black girl magic hashtag all you want, Black woman is God, divine, Eve, Jean, whatever, all you want. You can do that all you want, but at the end of the day, there's people who are looking at you as invaders, period. They're gonna look at you as an invader. It don't matter how much black girl magic, love, Eve goddess, femininity stuff you got going on. They're gonna see you as an invader. And like I said, I think it is dangerous, and I think more importantly, it's very you can set yourself up for failure if you're just not aware of the reality. So here are a couple of things I want to highlight in the manifesto. So as I mentioned, he did a 180-page manifesto where he basically wrote out his entire points. He wrote out his intentions. He wrote out what he believed. He provided sources. Many of them are false sources, but sources nonetheless. His facts and things to support his positions. He wrote out his plan. I think the guns, everything. So it's all laid out there. Here are some of the key points that I think are important to recognize. Okay, so first things first, it says, so American identity, this topic of American identity, it's interesting because more and more, I see this being a reason for black people even to beef. You got, ADOS, FBA, you got sometimes Aboriginals that are sometimes beefing with other people. Like there's a lot of, even in the black community, there's a lot of different, the way people claim themselves, call themselves. I don't necessarily have an issue with that, but I do have an issue when that can start to create tribalism or it can start to create unnecessary divisions. With that said, however, when this person defined American identity, he said American identity is white identity, period. Anything other than that is not American. Again, American identity is white identity. Ain't no African American, ain't no Mexican American, ain't no Chinese American. No, American is white identity, period. So I want you to understand that. And this is why, again, an American citizen could go and open fire on other American citizens and think he was justified. Because in his mind, what he was doing was protecting his country. He was going and protecting his country against the invaders, aka black folks. So I want you to recognize that, like I said, this is a ideology out there that people have, right? There are people out there that actually believe this stuff. That actually believe, unless you are white, you are not American, period. So that's the first thing I noticed. So again, talking about black identity, I mentioned before that black identity is seen as a foreign and invader identity. This is again things that he noted in his manifesto. Again, note that there is no distinction between ADOS, FBA, black immigrants, Aboriginal. There is no distinction. He sees black identity as foreign and as invaders. And again, this was the thing that in his mind caused him to justify opening fire on innocent American, right, black American victims. This is why he justified, because he saw them as invaders because they weren't white, and white is not American. And again, why is that important? Because, like I said, while this particular individual certainly took these things to the extreme, he is representing a growing trend. There of Americans out there who literally they believe this stuff. They live off of this stuff, and they're being radicalized by the internet. They're being radicalized by some of the different financial struggles that are going on, recession, inflation. They are being radicalized. So again, it's important to be aware of not only how people are seeing, how these people are actually seeing other people, but to act accordingly. Okay, so again, like I said, white American identity, white identity. If you're not white, you're not American, period. That's how it's seen. Also, a total side note, if you travel internationally like I've had, you'll notice that. You will notice that sometimes when people speak American, they think white. So this even goes into like how things are marketed. Because I've had times like this where I travel to other countries or other nations, and depending on where I go, I keep my mouth shut. I may look like a local. Like I remember when I went to like Colombia, or I was in Africa for some time. Like, when I cut my mouth shut, I may look like I could be a local there. But then when I start talking, they're like, "Oh, you're not from here." And then then there's even a few examples where I was like, "Oh, I'm from America," and they're like, "Wait, so your ancestry what, Kenyan? That then you moved to America?" Or they're like, because they're not seeing me as like American. They're thinking you can't be American because you're not white. So they're thinking, okay, you must be from somewhere else, but you migrated there. And it's like, no, my family's been there for generations. So like I said, even when you go to other countries, sometimes when they think American, they first think white. This is at least in my experience. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong. But again, so this is a pervading ideology out there. And to try to deflect, to use these kind of situations to deflect and try to blame black men or blame the community or blame and say it's not about racism or say, well, this is one off. What that does, it creates a reason for people to not call a spade and call things out for what they are. And that is, at the end of the day, again, that white supremacy is alive and well, and it's radicalizing youth. And if people don't, at the very least, address it, if you don't address it, then you set yourself up to be a target. Shout out! I see some support coming through. Shout out to Kevin C. I always appreciate the love and the support. I see. Neely Fuller Jr. speaks on this. There are still Black people who are confused about the magnitude and depth of racism and white supremacy. Bingo. Y'all, there's still sundown towns. Don't get it twisted. There are still sundown towns. I just saw just last week, a dude was talking about how he got. He was trying to deliver a package to sundown town, and I think he met somebody on the way, and they were like, "Get out, get out." It's one of them towns where people go missing, and think about it. If you're in a small town, people go missing, and the police is in on it. What happens? So it's like, don't get it twisted, y'all. This stuff is still real. I'm not saying you gotta, go around and be scared, act like the boogeyman's behind you, but you also can't act like we live in a post-racist society where people don't see race. It's just like, no, the society was literally built upon that. It runs on that to this day. That's how policies are made. That's how money's been made. That's how, class has largely been structured. So it's like, you can't act like it's not a thing when you literally have young teenage boys being radicalized. This is not the first. Even in his manifesto, there were other recent mass shooters that he had mentioned, other recent white supremacists that he said that he followed and really taught him. So this, like I said, this stuff is being taught, and it's being pushed down. Okay, so I agree with that. Also, let me see. I see Rocco Fawn. I hope I didn't butcher that. Thank you for the tribute. I appreciate it. Also, shout out to Mike Walker with 10 on the Cash App. And I think I saw, let's see, make sure I got everything. I think I saw another one come through. Shout out to Clemente Calloway with the 5. Yeah, this stuff is real. And just I could be okay in Vinegar. That's the sundown town, and that I'm sure that's not the only. Listen, y'all, another story. This is one of my good friends of mine. She grew up in the Bay Area, ended up somehow moving to Arkansas, right? Moved to like a really, really rural town in Arkansas. And I remember she called me one day and she's like, I'm so confused. This is a white girl, but she wasn't blonde. White girl had like darker hair, you know what I mean? But she's like, I'm so confused because every other word I feel like I hear it's like the N-word. Like every other word I hear they're like just throwing the N-word around here like it's nothing. I'm getting stares around here because I'm like not blonde hair, blue eyes. Like a lot of people here are blonde hair, blue eyes. Like she's like, whoa, like I was not expecting this. She's like, I feel like an outsider. And this is a white girl, dark hair, but she has dark curly hair. You know what I mean? But she's going to Arkansas. She doesn't have blonde hair, blue eyes. She's not a part of that. She didn't grow up there, and she felt this weird. She experienced this, I guess, weird aspect of the South that she had never ever encountered before. And I just remember her and I having conversations, and it's like, yeah, this stuff is still alive and well. Can't be so You can't just be so nonchalant about this stuff. If you grew up in a diverse area like I did, you may see certain things and you may feel like, oh, these things don't exist anymore. But that's just not true, y'all. It's not true. Okay, so let me continue on with these points. So we went over so American identity. American identity, again, this is according to his manifesto and also according to the ideology that he represents, white supremacy, right? American identity is white identity. Anything that's not white is invader. It is foreign. It is not welcome here. Step one. Therefore, black identity, this means that black identity is foreign. So again, FBA, ADOS, Aborigines, Black American, African American, Negro American, Colored American, whatever B1, all whatever terms you want to use to identify yourself are null and void. You cannot be Black and American. It is antithetical. You cannot be Black and American. This is according to white supremacy, or this is according to his manifesto. And again, why is this important? Because it was that belief that felt like he had the right to go and open fire on innocent victims because he saw them as invaders. He saw them as invaders, guys. So that was the driving motivation there. Now let's talk about culture. He mentioned this, how he felt that the cultures and other non-whites were polluting American, aka white culture. And this goes into, I think it's like the great replacement theory that's been floating around for some time. This is actually a point I saw being made earlier where it's just like, so they're banning critical race theory, but there's not a ban on the great replacement theory, right? And again, basically that theory is that at the end of the day, the white population in America, I think just in the West in general, and essentially when they say West, they refer to white, what could be racially classified as white, but that the population, the birth rate is declining, and that it is in a state of emergency, and that it is in threat of being genocided, and that it is in threat of being overtaken by invader, foreign, Black or brown, some even called poo culture. So this is essentially the great replacement again, that white people can be replaced, and that they can be taken out and genocided. And again, it's this fear mongering that basically says that as the birth rate declines, as white women are not having more kids, there's the replacement rate is low, yada 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 yada. This could lead to white genocide. This could lead to the white American countries and the white European countries again being taken over from foreigners, invaders. And this is essentially one of the driving forces of white supremacy and even white supremacist ideology, because there is this incessant need really to try to protect what they believe is their own, right, which is the American soil, which is the Western countries, Europe. And if there's a belief that has been taken away from them, the power that they deserve is being taken away from them, the country that their ancestors built is being taken away from them, then they feel that they need to fight for it. So again, when we talked about culture, and he said Blacks and other non-whites are polluting American culture, that was a driving force. That was another thing that motivated him to do this terrorist attack. So again, guys, if you're on here, hit that like button, y'all. Hit those likes. Hit the like button, tag anybody on here. Share this with someone that you think may find it interesting. Also, if you like what this is about, show some support. I will be sure to acknowledge all super chats. And also, guys, yeah, I'll be sure to acknowledge super chats. And okay, let me keep this pushing. So again, so that's culture. That's culture. The culture is being polluted by non-Americans, which again, according to his definition, a non-American is anything that is not ethnically and culturally white. Here's another thing that was mentioned that was very, very, very clear throughout the entire report. It was incredibly anti-Semitic. He blamed Jewish people for basically all of the problems related to the economy, the political system, the immigration, inflation, anything wrong or any issues or anything right now that are causing people to bicker or fight. were blamed upon Jewish people. So again, completely anti-Semitic. That was something that he espoused openly, and essentially blamed Jewish people for all problems in America. And then another thing in there, now this was his personal position, and I think there is a fracture in general, from my understanding, in different white supremacists, some different white supremacist ideologies or groups. I think there's some who are pro LGBTQ. There are some who are not, because they think that kind of essentially fights against or goes against the ultimate goal, which is to increase the white birth rate and to maintain or to even gain more power. But he personally was in support of LGBTQ, but not T. He was not in support of trans. But that's one thing that I noticed in his report. Now, about relationships, he talked about relationships. He said mixing of cultures is bad, period. He believes people should live in their own nation among their own people. Again, this goes back to America is white. It's for white people. So anything that is not white should not be here, does not deserve to be here. Again, this is another thing that he mentioned in his manifesto, guys, 180 pages. So again, American identity, Black identity, about culture, distinction in race, anti-Semitic, relationships, LGBTQ. He also went on to basically just talk about how at the end of the day, Black people are less intelligent. Black people they're less intelligent except when it comes to crime. They're really good at crime, but anything else they're not good at. They need to be kicked out. They're polluting the culture. They're making things worse. They're making everything horrible. They're violent, yada, yada, yada. So, it just kind of goes on and on. But at the end of the day, that is essentially some of the pervading arguments and pervading ideologies that gave him what he believed the right to go and execute innocent American victims. Innocent victims, guys. Now, why is this important? Why is this important? I think especially for Black women, this is important for you to know. When he talked about relationships, and when he talked about mixing, right, breeding, having kids, marriage, he did not see Black women as a viable option. Quite the opposite. He saw Black women as aggressive, as overweight, as more violent towards their men than any other group of women, and as horrible options for men. As horrible options, period. He made that very, 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 very clear that he had no interest in Black women, and that the whole idea of mixing the races, if you created, it eroded beauty. In his words, he talked about how if you mix races, you do these things, it messes with the beauty. So he was very clear that he was not messing with a Black woman. He was not messing with a Black woman. And this is my main point, y'all. This is my main point. When we overlook the fact that at the end of the day, there are still people out there who are just brazenly, blatantly, openly, lovingly racist and lovingly, in their bigoted ways. When you overlook that and you kind of paint this kumbaya picture that everything is going to be safe all the time, especially for Black women, that everything is going to be safe all the time when you date and marry out. This is where I think it can get really, 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 really into dangerous territory. And it was so interesting that here is a white man openly saying that he does not like Black women and he does not see him as a viable option. And yet we go online and we see Black women now instead of actually calling a spade or addressing him as the white supremacist as he is, you see some blaming Black men. And it's just like, sis, listen. Are we willing to have an honest conversation that whether you decide to date intraracially or you decide to date or marry a Black man as a Black woman, or you decide you want to date and marry out, okay, are we willing to at the very least acknowledge that there actually is risk involved? In a country where the threat of white supremacy is growing, this is not a one-off, this is growing. You have this was a 18-year-old teenage man, however you want to put it, but he was radicalized. He was looking at material. He had other peers that he looked up to, that he acknowledged, who helped school him and give him the truth. they're being taught and they're passing this stuff down. Can we at the very least acknowledge that this is a real threat and that it exists? Of course, I'm not saying every single person walking around believes this stuff, and that if you go and marry somebody that's not black or date with somebody that's not black, they're going to try to shoot you up. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that promoting the fallacy that dating out or marrying out is going to be safer, it is a fallacy. It's just completely and totally and utterly false. In a climate that we live in, such as the United States of America, where you literally see critical race things like critical race theory being banned, you see that being banned. It's like you can't even talk about race in certain areas because there's this fear that it's going to make people feel bad. It's going to make white people feel bad. That's being banned, but the Great Replacement that has been shown to link to actual terrorist attacks is not being banned. We cannot pretend that this is not a viable, real school of thought. We cannot pretend. So I'm not saying that that a woman or a man cannot date or you can't do it. It's like, look, listen, do whatever you want. As a black person, do whatever you want. This is a free country, right? But I'm like, can we just be honest about what's going on? And I think it is incredibly dangerous, especially when we put interracial relationships sometimes, because marriage is on a pedestal. We pedestalize them and don't talk about the real issues that sometimes interracial marriages actually go through or relationships go through. You don't talk about the issues of trying to navigate a dating market where you could actually run across a racist person. You could run across a person that has really, really anti-black ideologies and maybe just has a fetish. Like, those are real things. And so the way that I saw what I felt like certain people, certain spaces dancing around the obvious issue speaks to the fact that this still makes people really uncomfortable. And I think there's still a level of cognitive dissonance for some. And there's still others who just strictly do not want to accept the fact that at the end of the day, as a black person in America, there is a significant fraction of people who do not really see you as American, period. Even if you have citizenship, they do not see you as American. What American citizen do you know that can be unarmed, you know what I mean? Unarmed and just killed. And not just unarmed and killed. How many situations have all of us seen of an unarmed black person getting killed, getting murdered? Maybe they get justice, maybe they don't get justice. Like, it's always like a gamble. It's always like, okay, let's see if something's going to happen. Let's see if something's not going to happen. But there's usually always this assumption that's just like, yeah, it's probably going to get start off. Like, we've all been trained and accustomed to the fact that black folks are not treated like the white Americans that he actually stated in his own manifesto. We've experienced that. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not necessarily saying that, you can't have friends of different races, or you can't. It's like, no one is saying that, but I think it's like, can we actually be honest, especially as women? Can we be honest about the fact that white supremacy is alive and well? And actually, by the way, it is growing. Now, I can't tell you at what rate, but people are being radicalized. Inflation, jobs, issues, challenges with immigration, disagreements with immigration, now the whole abortion thing, like rising prices. Like, these are the kinds of things that tend to radicalize people. And all it takes is someone to be bored. All it takes is for somebody to already have a little preconceived notion. Maybe they didn't hang around black people, or maybe they didn't grow up around other ethnic groups, and they just kind of were in an all-white environment. And the only ideas they have of black people are from what they see on music videos, what they see on television. They take those preconceived notions and they get lost in Reddit. They get lost in a YouTube portal. And it's like, and the rest is history. So y'all, this stuff is happening and we see it. And if we don't acknowledge it, and if we just tell women, especially, I'm talking to women who in the context of relationships, because I think this is where it's really important, in the context of relationships, in particularly as you are dating and navigating the market, all I'm saying is just be aware. Just be aware. And also, by the way, now more than ever, it is important that you do not put a target on your back by, again, continuing to openly undermine men who share your complexion. These are the kind of situations that I see where I'm just like, you literally have a person being like, I'm going to target all black folk. I don't care if the FBA, ADOS, I don't care if it's male or female. I don't care if she's young, if she's old. Targeting black folks. They see no distinction. They're not caught up in the tribalism, the ages, and gender wars. They don't see distinction. So when I see situations like this, I see how division does not serve. It just does not serve the black community. Having black women over there and be like, oh, black men are this, or they're over there, we're over here, we're our own group, whatever. Having that mentality does not serve. If anything, it makes you an easy target. And that's what I've said over and over again, and I'll continue to say. That if you were a woman, especially that goes around openly defaming your own community, going around saying how you divested or you're getting away from Blackistan, yada, yada, you're making yourself a sitting duck for somebody who's already looking for a vulnerable person to attack. Because let it be known, in his manifesto, he said, all the invaders they all need to be removed. But I'm going to start with black people. Why did he start with black people? Because he felt that they were the most vulnerable. He felt that they were the easiest to start with, not only from a visual standpoint, but just for so many different reasons, economically, politically, whatever. He felt like they were the easiest target. That is why he went after black people. And there's going to continue to be others who are going to go after who they believe are the most vulnerable. It's unfortunate. He targeted a predominantly black area. He went to an area where there was a food desert, and he opened fire. He did that on purpose. And so that's what I'm saying. Going and saying things to put a target on your back is not helping in a society that has already shown that, unfortunately, not everybody sees you as a welcome, and some see you as invaders. It ain't helping. It ain't helping. So, yeah, guys, that's what I got in the topic. Again, if you're here listening and hit that like button, y'all. Likes are free. So I see, okay. Oh, and this is another thing. Good point. Because I see somebody mentioning how we saw agents. So in his manifesto, the one invaders, I guess that he talked more positively about were those of the Asian community. He said he respected those and thought that they had good intellect. And I've seen this stream of thought too, where it's just like, you'll have people who are openly bigoted and racist and do not like black folks, do not like anything that ain't white, but they'll have an Asian wife. So that's what I'm saying. Just because I'm not even at the point where just because someone says, oh, I have an Asian wife, or I volunteered here, or oh, my gardener's Mexican or something, like that doesn't mean that they're not racist, y'all. Just because somebody will sleep with you doesn't mean that they are not in their mind warped. This is why I say at the end of the day, it's like you have to vet a person based upon you should vet a person based upon who they are, based upon their mind, their spirit, their internal qualities. It can't just be based upon the person's skin. That's the most ignorant thing ever. Because you got people, like I said, who can be outside of your ethnic group, who can be just as dusty, be the dustiest thing that you've ever gotten. So it's like this should be common sense. It should be common sense that a person should be judged based upon their character. It should be based upon who they are, their spiritual value, who they are as humans, who they are to their community. That is how they should be judged, not just based upon how they look. Like, this should be common sense. But unfortunately, sometimes I think, especially in this mating market that we got going on with black women, that's not always the energy that comes off. What's being portrayed right now is that black women basically in interracial relationships have it better. And then we see white supremacists go off, target men and women, literally say black women are not viable options for dating and mating. And then we're silent. And then there's silence. And then there's silence. Silence from some of the very channels who love to talk about interracial relationships. Silence. So I'm like, okay, this is not, y'all, we're not having an honest conversation here. We're not having an honest conversation here. Right. Yes, right. So anyways, guys, so that's what I got, y'all. That's what I got on the topic. I do have a few minutes if anybody wants to call in, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a little intermission, if you will, guys. If you want, any of you guys want to call in? Any of you guys want to let me see, give your thoughts on this whole topic? Let me know. But I think we'll all say this. I think at the end of the day, like I said, we saw it. This is racially motivated. This is not difficult. This is not. You don't need to have. You don't need to have a college degree to see, like, this. This was a racially motivated crime from a bigoted person who hated Black people, who wanted to basically save his race. I wish I could say this is a one-off, but it's not. There's other people who think like him, and while they might be more quiet and they might not actually go and try to have a terrorist attack, they very much are in agreement with his thoughts. Like I said, he was radicalized by what he saw online. He spoke to the Great Replacement theory, which has been openly promoted in the US by different political parties. So this stuff isn't just some random, like far off idea, like, oh wow, where did this come from? It's like, no, this is alive and well. It's been brewing in the surface. It is growing, and I think at the very least, if it's not acknowledged, we can at least first call a spade. Then there can't ever be any talks about how to protect yourself, how to manage, how to move accordingly. You can't ever do that. So that's, like I said, nothing else. That's the conversation that I wanted to have, especially for you ladies. Especially for you ladies out there. It's time to stop with the whole race. This race doesn't matter. It's not about race. It's not a big deal no more. That's for the birds. We got to know that. We got to know, because while we were talking about race don't matter, meanwhile there's people out there who are literally to this day creating policies, making plans. There's so many things to this nation that are organized based upon race to this day. And if we want to deny that, we can, but it just makes you more vulnerable. It just makes you a target. And like I said, that ain't helping nobody. So that's what I got. So like I said, I have a few minutes. If anybody does want to call in, let me know, y'all. If you want to, let me see. What am I doing here? Okay, I'm trying to find something. Okay, guys. So if you want to call in, show some support, y'all. Show some love. If I get enough support, I will go and open up the call lines. And if it seems like we're not wanting to do it, that's totally fine too. We'll end this, and we'll end this thing, and we'll do it later. So I'm gonna go on like a few minute break, and or a little intermission, and we'll go from there. I can find it. Okay. My bad. Let me try that again. No, I was saying, so okay, looks like y'all don't want to do a call-in. No worries. So if you guys don't want to do a call-in, I will wrap this up. Like I said, let's just get. Am I still on mute? Am I still on mute? Y'all still can't hear me? Can you guys hear me now? Because I'm not seeing that I'm on mute. Am I still on mute? Okay, so you can hear me now. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna keep this simple, keep this to the point. Really, at the end of the day, white supremacy is alive and well. Here it is, ladies. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's alive and well. So we can act like it don't exist. We can go over here talking about you date and marry out. It's gonna be safer, but that's not dealing with the reality. That's why I say we don't know. No matter how you navigate in the dating and mating market, just be aware. Just be aware in the country that you live in the culture that you live in. Of course, you can still have meaningful friends and relationships with people outside of your ethnicity. Of course, of course, of course. Absolutely. Also, by the way, you have got to be aware that the ideology that he represents, he is one of many, unfortunately. I'm not saying of all, but he's one of many. And again, you see it. There are signs, whether it's subtle, whether we want to accept it, or whether it's blatant, but there are signs all the time that remind us like, hey, this stuff still exists. This is what some people are still believing, and they're passing it down to their children. It's being taught, it's being brought from somewhere. So it's not. So I see like, okay, no, I said y'all, if you let me see. I didn't see anybody send in through some support. Where the link? If you want me, y'all, if you want me to go up, you can send. If you send through some support, I got you. If not, we keep it pushing. Now I know Hakeem. There's no additional supporters requested the feedback for her. Yeah, Hakeem, you got me. I love you guys, but it's like these days, honestly, because there's so much I'm trying to edit. It's like I have to try to be I have to be strategic with my time. So if you guys want me to open up the link, open up the call lines, if you send through some more support, I got you. We got you. Otherwise, it's cool. We can continue this conversation another day. I do have a few other videos that I'm trying to work on, so that's what we got. But honestly, Hakeem, though, if you want to call in, I got you because I know you're a consistent supporter. So if you want to call in, let me know. Okay, but so that's what I'm saying, you guys. Like we can sit here and act like it's not a thing, but actually it really, really, really is. And we are not doing ourselves any favors when we just don't call a spade a spade. That's why I started this whole conversation by looking at different tweets and different things, different kind of crazy and ridiculous, but they speak to the unwillingness that some of us have to want to deal with the fact that this was motivated by just blatant white supremacy. And also, by the way, we can say, oh, this is a one-off, but he is one of many because somebody taught him. He had people he looked up to. He had contemporaries. He had peers that he looked up to, that he mentioned within his manifesto. And like I said, we can look at it. At the same time, CRT is being banned. The Great Replacement is not. The Great Replacement theory is not being banned. And unfortunately, that theory is a very thing that is leading and helping in some instances has actually radicalized young guys to go and act act in behalf of the race, aka go and start to kill folks that they see as invaders. So that is all I am saying. It's like at a certain point, you gotta call a spade and start to deal with what is going on and how not only while some of us women in particular are going around here acting like we're going to be safe if we divest and leave Pakistan, and we can go right over there and divest into a sundown town. And you know what happens in sundown towns? Is that what you want? Is that what you want? And unfortunately, if Black women, if we go over here, seeing that we are easy targets, doing things, saying things, promoting behavior that is going to make us an easy target, it's going to make it super, super, super easy for people like this to go and really go and feed on and really go and just target Black women. Like, just make it super easy. They won't even have to try hard. Because if you openly say we don't need protection, Black men don't protect us, we're Blackistan, these Black men are conquered, if we are essentially repeating the very racist talking points that white supremacists themselves repeat when they go and kill other Black people, what do you think that's going to mean when they're going out looking for targets? What do you think that's going to mean? So this is what I'm saying. When there is an unwillingness to accept the reality for what it is, and when there's an unwillingness to call a spade and say, no, this ain't no Black men's fault. Stop that foolishness. We can't go over here and try to blame Black men. I mean, think about how ridiculous. I brought up that tweet. That was the most ridiculous thing I've heard in this whole entire situation. You have a white dude over here that wrote a 180-page manifesto talking about why he was racially motivated to kill people. And you got the nerve to now go, instead of focusing on what he did, you now go and blame it on innocent Black men who had nothing to do, weren't sitting there planning, weren't sitting there working with him. They had nothing to do with the situation, and now they're to blame. See, here's another thing. We talk about protection. Talk about protection. Because in that one tweet I showed y'all where she was over here like, oh, where are the Black men? Where are the Black men? Where are the men? Where are the men? First of all, if you didn't already hear, a Black male security guard lost his life over there trying to protect people. So stop the cap with it. Wasn't no men there protecting people. That man put his life on the line and he died. So stop the cap. There was a Black man, specifically their security guard, that went and tried to protect the innocent victims. He shot the dude. Unfortunately, what's his name? The terrorist, he had armor and stuff on, so it didn't fully go through. But he went and shot the dude. He went and tried to stop him. And he lost his life in the process. But they say if it had not been for that security guard, there probably would have been more casualties. So let's just start there. We'll stop the cap, because no, actually there were people they're trying to protect. But more importantly, when we have these weird conversations about protection, it's like, what were the collective of Black men supposed to do? Or were they supposed to just have some superpowers to know that there's a random dude who went into a grocery store, which that doesn't look crazy. Everybody goes in the grocery store. They're supposed to have some like random superpowers to just be able to tell that, oh, wow, this white guy that's going to shop in the grocery store is a terrorist because he's white? Like, were they supposed to just randomly know that? And then the collective of Black men are supposed to just come out of the woodworks and just ambush him. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, when we have these protections and we just kind of, we just throw around blame randomly, just randomly throw around blame. We're not dealing with the issue. And the issue is, like I said, there was a young teenage, he was a teenage boy, now a young man, that was radicalized to the point where he felt like he had to save his race. And he saw anything that was not white as an invader, and he was willing to take it out. And even in his manifesto, he said, watch out, Black people, you are not safe. You are not safe here. He is one of many. So don't be fooled. That's all I'm saying. Don't be fooled. And don't be surprised when you see people looking a certain way. You see certain policies passed, because like I said, this ideology we see even in politics. It's not just like, oh, you see people with the ideology in politics moving that way. Now, some of them are kind of more subtle, and they're a lot more buttoned up with it, but they have the same ideology that America is white and it should remain white. And if it becomes too non-white, that's a problem, period. And if you don't recognize that, then you might be actually surprised or shook when certain things happen. And also, by the way, that's really dangerous when you pretend otherwise. Like I said, you may literally put a target on your back. Black woman over here talking about, these Black men don't protect this. I'm gonna go divest to a brat. How many divestor disasters have we seen? How many divesting disasters have we seen? And I fear that there may be more. I hope there's not, but I fear there might be more. And it will be partially because there are ignorant women who have fallen into this fantasy and not vetted properly. If you refuse to acknowledge the fact that that guy that you're crushing on is probably racist, or he could be racist. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's totally fine and it's great. But maybe if there's red flags there, you shouldn't overlook it. Maybe he obviously is. But some people refuse to accept that could be a possibility, and that, like I said, that ain't helping nobody. So, right, that's what I'm saying. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have close relationships with non-Black folks. I talk to this about some of my non-Black friends. So it's a real thing. And like I said, listen, even in the Bay Area where it's supposedly everything's so liberal here, whatever, I drive 20 minutes down the freeway, best believe I will get some looks. Best believe. I go into certain areas to this day. I go into certain stores to this day. I'm not, just because even being in the Bay Area, being in California, where you see literally everything, you see the same stuff. You go into the Silicon Valley, don't even, it's the racism in Silicon Valley. And there it's kind of like the namaste, I have a Chinese wife racism. It's a different level of racism. We're more sophisticated. So that's what I'm saying. It's like this ideology where people sometimes see you as invaders or see you as not wanted. Unfortunately, it comes in different forms. And at the very least, if we don't acknowledge that it does exist and acknowledge that it still is out to harm people, then you make yourself so susceptible. You make yourself so susceptible to harm, and you engage in further detrimental behavior that can make you a target for further attacks. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Y'all hit that like button. Okay, so shout out. I'm seeing some support come through. Shout out to Malarkey with the 10 on the super chat. Appreciate the love and the support. Shay, a small donation from London, England. Hope others follow suit. I appreciate it. Wait, it has to be really late where you're at. Because if you're in London, you're up really late. You probably should go to bed soon. Okay. Shout out to Tedros Court with the 20. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Also, shout out to what's going on here? Where'd you go? I think I saw. Where'd you go? Wait. Okay, there's another one I want to acknowledge. Oh yes, shout out to Seismic. Vertigo, y'all coming through today. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the love and support. So, as I mentioned before, 2:30. Oh wait. Oh, it's PM. But is it PM or AM? Maybe I'm like so behind. I thought you guys were 8 hours ahead. Okay, so I'm gonna open up the call lines. I got a few minutes if anybody wants to call in and give their anybody wants to call in and give their perspective. Let me actually plug my computer into y'all because it's about to die, and that would not be good. I don't want my computer to die like halfway through the live. So y'all give me a second, then I'm gonna open up the call lines for a second. Also, y'all hit the like button. Likes are free. Likes are free. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, so anybody who did I share it? Did I share it? Maybe I didn't. Okay, you guys, any of you guys, I know some of y'all may got something to say. Morning. Okay, it's bedtime, ain't it? Although some people just don't sleep. I know people like that who they just do not be sleeping. That's crazy. Well, shout out to hanging out, Malarkey. Shout out everybody. Give a special shout out to Malarkey 5 for being here at 2:30 a.m. That's some special love and support. Much appreciated, y'all. Much appreciated. So, if any of you guys got something to say on the matter, on the whole thing, let me know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's pretty clear that Black men are not to blame for this whole scenario, but I think it's also clear that there is some deflection going on right now. I'm not saying everybody, but there is some deflection. And if you're a person that doesn't want to face the facts, I think now is a prime opportunity to at the very least acknowledge what is going on. Acknowledge it for what it is and plan accordingly. So let's see who we got. Let's see what we got. Kevin C, what's going on, Kevin C? We got Kevin C in Tedros Court. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, how you doing? I didn't expect to come up so fast. Yeah, hey, how's it going? You got me?
Huh. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I have you.
Okay, sorry about that. So what you got in the whole scenario?
Yeah, so just a few things real quick. It's very interesting that, some guy who's 18 years old thinks he has the audacity to tell who's supposed to be here and who's not.
Right, that part.
Yeah, like how do you get there? And then there's not really a whole lot of talk about the parents and what the parents are doing and how he got to this point. If we had any, young black man doing this stuff, running out of control, just running loose and running rampant, then the first thing they would do is start looking at the background, blaming the parents, and just blaming every black person they run into. So I don't know where all of this stuff comes from, but at the root of this, I mean, obviously, he's actually parroting really the main talking point from Dr. Welsing, Francis Cress Welsing, when they talk about genetic annihilation.
Yeah.
So the thing is, yeah, absolutely. So the thing is that they're worried about becoming extinct, and they're literally going extinct anyway. So instead of actually getting together, getting married, producing children and actually trying to keep up the birth rate, his response is, well, I'm just going to take everybody out, which is, ludicrous.
Right.
Instead of actually doing the work that he's supposed to do in order to compete and do the right thing and actually, do what they're supposed to do on an even and fair playing field, they just rather cheat like they've been doing and just take the easy route and just, artificially place themselves at the top like they've been doing for the last 400 plus years instead of actually doing the work. While at the same time, looking at everybody else and going, oh, you guys are lazy. You guys are this. You guys are terrible. You're not good enough. You're not this. You're not that. Like, no, it's as far as I'm concerned, when y'all look at it from an analytical viewpoint, it's crazy to me. But I look at, and I'm not even trying to be careful about how I say this. I'm like, if you want to call somebody else inferior, how are you going to actually run around talking about how much better you are when you're the one that needs the system in place to actually be on top? Like, we don't have that system. So the whole thing doesn't make sense to me. So
I mean, when I read the manifesto, there are a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of inconsistencies. And it was riddled with, okay, so his was black privilege. He said how there's this whole concept of black privilege and how black privilege is getting all these tax dollars, but still complaining about reparations and having access to all these programs, but still every 15 seconds talking about race. So it's like, reading through that, it gave me so much more understanding of what we're up against and what we're dealing with. And I think when I was reading through that, I was like, okay, first of all, half the sources were just bogus. It was like, these are bogus sources. And then you got like Wikipedia, and which we all know, take with a grain of salt. But so I'm reading through all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, not only is this just false information, what it sounded like to me is here's a person who was already predisposed for a certain vantage point, a certain position, and then he got around the right or the wrong people, and then they just continue to be reinforced. And that's an interesting thing about it too. When I was, even when he wrote on the manifesto, now I don't know about what the media is saying about the parents. I haven't heard much. But when he wrote on the manifesto, he said, "Oh, my parents aren't really racist, or they haven't taught me this stuff. I just was bored, and then I was told the truth." And the reason I call cap is because no one wakes up one day and has fulfilling, loving relationships. Like, for example, I've always prided. Oops. Ah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Uh-oh, the microphone. Yeah.
Ah. Wait. What happened? What's it? Where'd you go? Sorry about that. I'm having some, as you can see, like I said, the struggle stream is always a little bit real here. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I have you.
Okay,
yeah.
All I was saying was, like, for example, I've always felt blessed to have a a very, I guess, multi-ethnic, if you will, friend base. I've always had friends from different cultures, backgrounds, partially just because of where I live. But you know, I love that. So if I now ran across a video that said, "Oh, I don't know, all Chinese women are horrible," or all, you know, Mexican men, they just want to go and they're lazy and all they do is eat burritos all day, you know, something crazy like that, I'll be like, no, I have friends, I have connections, people that I know who do not fit that stereotype. So I reject this. This is stupid, you know. And so when somebody who could be radicalized based upon some stuff they heard on the internet shows me that they haven't had real life experiences with other ethnicities. They haven't actually had real life interactions with other people. And also, by the way, there are probably things that were said behind closed doors. There was already a predisposition for this to go to the next level. And that's what he didn't say that it's a manifesto because that's his experience. But I don't know if you've seen anything from the media on that, if they've talked about his parents more, but it's capped that, oh, he didn't learn from his parents. It's like, no, there's probably stuff he heard.
No, stuff like that comes from the parents, because I teach my kids a whole bunch of stuff too. But I'm not going to radicalize them. I'm just actually going to teach them the truth, so that way they're prepared for what they're dealing with out here in the world. You know, the interesting thing is that, you know who's getting all the millions and the billions and the trillions? Everybody except black people.
Oh, for sure.
That is literally. I need to sit down in a room full of people who are not black and just, hey, how much y'all think we actually get? Because there's this idea that, you know, since the 1980s, you know, Ronald Reagan brought in that whole idea that every black person is on welfare, specifically black women. Mm-hmm. We put that on black women, has been held ever since, when we know the numbers are completely false. So it's just, and the thing about it is the government actually puts these numbers out. They literally have agencies where the Department of Labor, Department of Human Health and Services, you know, everything, the CDC, Department of Vital Statistics, they literally, and to include every time Joe Biden and Congress, literally since he took office, has doled out millions and trillions and billions of dollars. It's literally an announcement. You can go to the White House website and see how many billions that all these other groups are getting, and black people aren't getting any of it. I'm gonna tell you, you know where they get this from? You know what they're doing? They always start off talking about black people whenever they have these policies that they put out, and then it goes into minorities, people of color. So everybody thinks black people are getting billions and billions, when literally nothing is going to black folks.
No, I mean that's obvious. All you have to do is look at, and I know this is where, you know, there's some who will say, oh, well, black people we're doing a lot better than we did 60, 70 years ago, and because you have some of us who are lawyers and you have some of us who are entrepreneurs, and so it's like there is a black bourgeois and there is a black elite. But I think sometimes what can be missing from that conversation, my perspective, is that even if you think even back in the time of slavery, there were black bourgeois. There were people who were there were free black people who had wealth, had access to certain things.
James Forten actually was a millionaire during black enslavement. He was one of our first millionaires. And
so just because you have a class or a group of people or a class of people who have wealth and have resources and have been able to make it, does not mean that the collective of the overall community is mean to do well, or is meant to do as well as, say, white America. That was never ever the intention for black Americans. And so I think sometimes it can be a little one-sided to say, oh, we had a black president. Oh, well, this person has money, that person has money. Of course, there's going to be individuals who make it, but the overall system, the policies that have been made, even the way that you know, think of appraisals. We all know, like, you know, you go a black person, you know, owning a home getting appraisal versus a white person owning the same home getting appraisal. Who's gonna get more value? Yeah. You know what I mean? So just things like that. The way even freeways are made, it's just like every aspect of our system. Titles, like for home. I mean, just every aspect of our system we know was not necessarily meant to put black folks or even minorities on equal ground as white folks. So that's what I'm saying. When I hear that talking point, it's like, okay, but let's talk. If we talk about the overall collective, we know not all of us are not going to do well because that's not meant to happen. It's not meant to happen.
I think one thing, and I think two other things. I think one thing that black people need to understand is that the people just don't like us. They literally,
that's true.
They literally do not like this is an absolute. And we're not just talking about just this one guy or, you know, the people from his group. I'm talking about everybody, and I'm talking about all across the world. Like when they start looking at somebody that they want to mess with, somebody they want to, beat down and actually, abuse and disenfranchise and everything else, it's literally us. And because everybody has support all across the world to actually, the agreement is, hey, we're going to mess with this specific group, then that's why we get the worst of it. But you pointed to one other thing as it relates to this whole divestment and swirling and everything else. Look, right now we're in the middle of a doggone gender war between black men and black women, and we are seriously divided. We have a small core group of people who are holding this thing together, but we got people on the extreme right and extreme left in our own group. And and that's how you get a woman who has the audacity to say, hey, where were y'all? When actually the first person to actually be killed was a black security guard. Just completely dismissed his sacrifice, completely dismissed the fact that he tried to actually, do something to dissuade and actually intervene and stop the whole thing. And he couldn't. The dude's not even getting credit for what he actually did. Like, that's a huge sacrifice. That dude is a family man. He's got kids. The dude's an inventor. He's actually a police officer, retired. That was like a second or a side job to him. And now he's
it was just something to do.
And the audacity. So how badly do you have to hate somebody to actually completely overlook that and then blame an entire group for something that you didn't even cause? The whole thing is crazy to me.
I wouldn't be surprised if that person, or if just people didn't even read. They just kind of reacted and just were looking.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about off code, but that's off code behavior. Not only that, you literally have black people who were saying, well, what about black on black crime? It's not even white folks saying it, it's black people saying it. Like, whatever is going on with black people.
Yeah, like what's the point?
That doesn't justify anybody else from the outside to come in and do more harm. We already have enough harm that's being done as it is. We don't need people coming in from the outside adding more to it. So I fought pretty much a whole lot of people as a result of this. But anyway, hey, I could go a little bit longer, but I think you got some other people that want to talk. I know you got to limit your time on screen. But hey, thanks for bringing me up. And I don't know what happened, but I try to send in more super chats, and I don't know. I got to see what's going on with my card and what's going on with YouTube and everything else. I've been having problems all over these channels because every time somebody comes up, I try to actually contribute because I know you guys work on this stuff and you guys should be compensated for your work.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, you're welcome to come on anytime.
Yeah, but I'll try to figure out that technical issue and see what's going on. All right. Hey, thanks for bringing me up. I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. What is that? Is it Tedros Court? What you got in the topic?
Hello, madam. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to start by saying, regarding you addressing the divesters, as it relates to this issue, it's a completely valid consideration. Where was I going with this? Excuse me. It's a completely valid consideration in that, their movement and talking points and ideology is all about, trying to pick the best man for the job and coming up with all these different reasons to invalidate black men as a prospective mate. Okay. You brought up in one of your previous videos that less than 1% of white men even marry black women. Okay. And then for black women, it's around that number. You know what I'm saying? So proportionally wise, black women's, number is, it's a smaller population. So it's like, it's barely 1% of them that even marry out, right? Marry out, not date out. Dating and marriage would be two different.
Yeah.
Right. But so it's like, and then even some of these quote unquote femininity channels, some of it's about being feminine, but then it's like, some of them, it's like a subliminal way of saying, hey, look, let's try to be more appealing for white men. And it's like, okay, there's all this energy that you're putting in to try to appeal to less than 1% of white men. Okay. You could put in half of that energy. Okay. And as Kevin Samuels would say, just look like the gist of what I would sum up almost all of his talking points was, kind of watch your weight and figure your looks somewhat. Just try to be practical about different types of men you consider as a mate, and basically don't have kids out of wedlock. You can kind of sum up a lot of stuff he was saying into those three, I would say, and it's like saying that was too much, but you're willing to put in all this energy to try to appeal to less than 1% of another demographic. Okay, and then so now when you inject this white supremacist consideration factor into it, okay, as you said, not every white man has this mentality, or even if they have this mentality, doesn't mean that they go on a killing spree. Okay, but even still, the mentality is prevalent among white society. Okay, so that makes the pool of compatible men even smaller. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. I had just two other points, and I'll get off. I'm going to keep it. Okay. I also wanted to say that I think some of this, the fact that someone even bring that up, even ask, are black men to blame? It, this is just my own personal bias against black people. Okay. I just think we got a lot of impractical kind of like thought patterns, and stuff that's just not making sense. To even ask that. I mean, how do you even respond to some shit like that? Okay. I'm not going to get off on a tangent, but I'm going to just list a couple things that I just think blacks show severe impracticality. The biggest thing for me is always all the out of wedlock children. Okay. Now, that number of 20% of black men responsible for 80% of kids out of wedlock. I've done various research. I'm not always sure that's 100% right. It might be right within a certain age range, but the point is, it is a minority of the men producing the bulk of it. Okay, and it's like, and it's very prevalent in Black American culture, and it's like a lot of the women just have all these excuses about, they try to justify their reasons for having a kid with this guy who already has multiple kids, and I don't know. It's just a lot of BS. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to say was, this is not me disputing Mr. Kevin C. what he said, but when he said these people just straight up don't like us, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I'm sure he means it in a very specific context, but I guess
he's like, for example, I can't think of it, PAYTON, whatever his name is. He certainly doesn't like us. So he was referring to white supremacists, those who are in agreement with the terror, maybe not how he did it, but in agreement with his overall perception of us being invaders, things like that. They don't like black folks. I don't think that's
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. The point I just wanted to make was that, in my opinion, and this is not disputing what he's saying, I'm just saying my opinion, it doesn't really matter if they like us or not. My thing is, we have to have a mentality of practicality. We need to be devising strategies and contingencies about, trying to whether arm ourselves. It doesn't necessarily got to be about, it is arming ourselves, regarding defense, but it's also arm yourself with, the economic infrastructure. You need to get to the point where you're independent enough to where, you can be a force to be reckoned with. That's more important. And just this is the very last point where you were talking about how, hey, they don't make a distinction between ADOS and FBA and this and that. Yeah, that's another impractical mindset amongst blacks. This bullshit division about, talking about, you're ADOS, you're African, and that's complete bullshit. I don't even see how that's a priority. And then, this is very controversial. This bullshit about how we indigenous and all that, don't even get me started on that, but it's just a bunch of nonsense. So anyway, I just want to say those things. Appreciate you letting me speak. I just it's usually only online I'm engaged in these kinds of conversations, out and about, and people just think you just I don't know, want to be controversial. Anyway,
no, well, no, I appreciate you for calling in.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you kindly.
All right, you have a good one.
You too.
Yeah, I understand what he's saying, especially that I don't have a problem with how somebody classifies themselves: ADOS, FBA, B1, Foundation of Black America. I don't have a problem with how somebody classifies themselves, but I think what needs to be understood is that at the end of the day, those with this mindset, the mindset of Black folks, people who look this way, are invaders, could not care less. So if the classification that you held becomes a reason to create division against other people, to create division, especially within the Black community, There's no point to it, especially when you're being perceived as one. We're being perceived as one, whether we like it or not. Whether you are an immigrant or you're not an immigrant, whether your family's been here 10 generations or not, the way that he mentioned it, going back to this terrorist and even who he represents, they don't make a distinction. They do not care. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't really care how a person classifies themselves, but I do care about if those classifications lead to a reason to create division. I think that in and of itself can be really, really detrimental. So that's something that I wanted to say, and I do agree with it. I know, people, like I said, people, some people can get really, really passionate about that. Okay, so it looks like I got shout out to JoJo in the building. I see I got a 10 on the super chat. I see read Dr. Neely Fuller Jr.'s book, y'all, I'm getting hungry. A compensatory counter-racist code. White supremacy dominates all areas of activity. Our main issue is white supremacy. I agree. It definitely does. It completely dominates. It's completely dominant. I don't think there's really another way to describe it. I mean, to this day, there are still policies and there are still methods and traditions that are based upon that. So you can't deny that. I see. Shout out to Mr. Lawrence 7777 with the 5 on the super chat. I say keep up the great work. You are doing my royal sister. Much appreciated. I want to make sure I got. Let me see. Okay, yeah, I have that. Okay, I get that book. Okay, so I think I have time for one more call, then I'm gonna have to wrap this up, y'all. Let's see what we got in the building. Oh, it looks like we got JoJo in the building. What's going on, JoJo?
What's up, Trey? How you doing?
Good. How you doing? What you got in the topic?
Oh man, I've been working, so every time I see you live, I'm either getting me some rest or I'm not able to jump on it. So I definitely, that's why I've been doing a lot of drive-bys lately. But I have a little time tonight. Today is my belly button birthday. Okay.
And,
yeah.
Belly button birthday. Okay.
Yeah. And I was just kind of sitting back, listening. I'm listening to the viewpoints that come out about the situation that happened to the soft targets, is what they call them.
Oh,
yeah. The people that couldn't defend themselves up there in Buffalo. And the crazy thing about it, I've looked at that manifesto, and what's so crazy is that it shows how white supremacy plays both sides in the conversation, because there's a part in there where he stated that he can either be right or left, depending on the situation.
Yeah, because you read the manifesto.
Yeah.
So you saw that, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, at the end of the day, when you're dealing with a white supremacist, the white supremacists want to control the narrative. So if they control the narrative, then they can control what they say at any given time. They can take a point and change up just for that circumstance. It's the, like Tariq like to say, it's the I'm white and I say so talking point, and we see that a lot with them. The thing is that they can't really cover this situation up, because we dug up the research on them. So the media had to get on point with it, because it already had got out. Like, people had already been researching this dude. Once the shooting and his name got released, we went to finding out who he was. So they had to hurry up and make it seem like they were exposing him, when that wasn't the case. It was the grassroots that exposed who that guy was, man. And getting back to the talk about reparations and stuff like that. And I want to be clear, because I'm FBA all day, right? And And it's never to divide, but it's to make sure that we have a direct and clear lineage. Because a lot of times people come around us and they think that we don't have a lineage. And there are some of us that have already been here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can trace my people back. You know what I'm saying? I sent you my ancestry.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like at the end of the day, we're just doing that because when we get these reparations, because we are not going in with a defeatist mentality. We know we're going to get the reparations one way or other. They're gonna cut a check, and they're gonna continue to cut it. They like right now. They have mobilized and they're trying to go up there to Buffalo. We got some people that with boots on the ground going up there because you know Joe Biden's supposed to be popping up, right? Mm-hmm. And they're gonna be telling him, "Hey man, look, we need Asians get an anti-hate crime bill. We need an anti-black hate crime bill. Aren't we? We should be a protected class." Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Aren't we a small marginal of the United States? Then we should be a protected class. And and we need those reparations as well, because you're trying to give 30 billion to Ukraine. You just gave 40 million to Asians. You know, you got all these other people that get, the compensation for the harm that was done to their ancestors or the people that came before them. Well, what about the harm what about the compensation for the harm that is done for the Black Americans that built this country, the people that were my family that built this country, and other people have came over and benefited off of it and want to continue to come over here and undermine us and hold us down by living off of the benefits of us building it. Mm-hmm. So we haven't got that recognition. We haven't gotten that compensation, right? And at the end of the day, we're still being undermined. That's why we're putting our lineage out there. We're like, listen, this is what we are, and this is how we're doing it. It's not a divide. So a lot of people that spew the the rhetoric that we're divided, no, it's just letting you know we got a lineage. We have a culture. We have a culture that everyone comes and emulates. You know, everyone comes and live off of. Right? If there's no uprisings for Black people here in America, there won't be no uprisings nowhere else. We're the leaders. You know, we paved the way for other people to come over here. You see what I'm saying? So it's like I'm not trying to take all of account to what our people have done, but at the end of the day, we need to start, giving respect where respect is due. We are the riders. The world looks at Black Americans and say, hey, those are the riders, man. We the only ones that stand up against white supremacy. When you come over here and you deal with these folks, man, we standing up to them. Everybody else, they flee their country, come over here and tell us, he say, why can't FBA unite with ADOS? I'm going to tell you what Dr. Neely Fuller said about uniting. You already won. Unit means one. So we don't need to unite. We just need to follow the code. Stay on code, stand up.
That's gonna be a whole nother conversation is being on code, Jojo. So,
right. But look, but you know what? This is how you break it down to its simplest form. Say, being on code is anything that is against the development and the progress of white supremacy. Breaking it down real simple.
No, I hear you. I'm that's one of the things I'm working on right now is kind of really digging really deep, because I know there's a general and then there's a particular how this operates, from the day to day. Because I hear a lot of people using it who aren't even really, don't even seem like they even really care about, I guess, the Black community that much, being on code, staying on code. So there's a lot to unpack there, but
yeah.
Well, I did have a question. So what about on your reparations? How do natives, how will they get reparations?
What you mean, Native Black people?
Because I know there's a question of, here's one thing that I've seen that I've always kind of found a little bit confusing, because I think there's some, as they'll say, okay, we're already here, we are originals here, right? But the thing about it is the Native Americans have already gotten reparations.
Right, but they didn't. Go ahead. I'm sorry, cutting you off. Go ahead.
So that's the thing to me that never really, because it's like Native Americans, they technically already got reparations. So the people, that's where to me the lines kind of get blurred, because it's like if they already got it, and that's when you say who you are, then why would you fight for it? Because I would think the government will be like, oh, we already got reparations. Like, what's your issue?
Well, the thing is, okay, all right. So let me break that down for you. So before they start doing the census and stuff like that, they went back and changed all of the dark-skinned natives to Negro. So you can go back to the Freedmen's Bureau and the let me see. If you can go back to the 1870 census on back, because slavery ended in 1865, right? So if you can track your lineage back to 1870 on back, we know that your folks were here. If you were dark skinned, because they enslaved the actual people, like the Seminoles, the Maroons, those people that was in the swamp, the creek, and all that stuff. Those Geechee Gullah people. Like most of those people were natives. The Blackfoots and all those people, those were natives. They were already here, but they were captured. You know, they were captured and they were thrown into these plantations, these slavery camps. And that's a whole nother, story. But the thing is, we were already here.
Do you have, where could you find about the evidence of the reclassification? Because I've heard of that. What's the evidence, or where do you find? I'm
gonna email it to you.
Okay, that'd be great. That would be great, because I'd love to look into that.
Yeah, because what happened was, it happened like the 1860s. They started reclassifying everybody, and if you was dark skinned, they called you Negro. And what happened was, by them doing that, that took a lot of people start being what they call those $5 Indians. It only cost $5 to get registered as an Indian if you had fair skin. Oh, it was a buy-in back in the day, man. They were benefiting so much because you got to remember, the cotton was thriving, the railroad companies were thriving. You know, we had built the White House and all these city halls and town halls, and we paved all these ways. We industrialized the foundation. That's why we call ourselves foundational Black Americans. My people were here when the foundation was built of the United States of America. You see what I'm saying? Like, without my people, without the lineage of my people building the United States of America, there would not be a United States of America. Even though the Americas was here, the wilderness was here, but the United States wasn't. So I am indigenous to the United States. I'm not an immigrant. You see what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like without my lineage, and the other people that have a lineage directly to the people that stood on those under that hot sun, and picking cotton and digging trenches and clearing brush and all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, without our people doing that, there would not be a United States of America. But the Americans was already here, so we're indigenous to the United States of America. You see what I'm saying?
So I see how you're explaining that position. Okay, well, right. Yeah, no. Well, definitely send me the information you have on the reclassification. I'd love to look into that. That's something that I'm also working on, doing some more a deep dive in just that whole.
It's crazy. It's crazy because black and white. That's when the black and white thing became something, because they used that term. That term really wasn't a big deal back in the day, because you had Black Europeans that came over here, and they thought they were different.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. I don't want to get too deep. I have some research and stuff planned. I try not to. I try not to talk too much on stuff until I've had a chance to really read through and trying to analyze. But thank you for sharing your perspective. Definitely share some of the different sources you have.
I got you.
That speak to your claims, and stay tuned. I think I'll touch upon that.
I'm locked in, man. I got to say, I appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate you being a part of Black media.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for your support and for calling in. Always a good convo.
No doubt.
All right. You take care, JoJo.
You too.
All right, guys. So like I said, that's the that's a whole nother topic. So I don't want to go too deep into it. All I will say, like I said, I'm doing my research. Yeah, I'm doing my research on that whole thing. But I always grew up saying, look, I know I have what do you call it? What was that my grandma? Actually, literally, my nana told me a few weeks ago. I think it's Navajo and Cherokee. So I always knew there was some of that in there, but I was like, okay, your lineage is African. Ain't no question about it. Got my blood work done, was confirmed. So I'm needless to say, I'm doing more of a deep dive in this whole lineage conversation. Because I know there's a lot to unpack there, so stay tuned. But anyways, back to the main topic, y'all. As I mentioned before, at the end of the day, this was good. I think if there is a honest acknowledgement of the fact that y'all, white supremacy is alive and well. We can sit here and try to act like it don't exist, and black girls over, black women over here can talk about black girl magic and just all that kind of different stuff. And at the end of the day, as Kevin C had even mentioned earlier, there's just certain people that just don't like you, period. And unfortunately, the terrorist attack that we saw in the name of white supremacy, what he did was radical, no doubt. It was a more the extremist, but he represents a growing trend, or at the very least, a school of thought that is alive and well in America. And so if I see women, black women in particular, talking about race is not an issue, race doesn't matter, race is not a big deal, and we see a racially targeted crime happen, this isn't the first time. And sadly, I hate to say that, I don't think this will be the last time. This stuff is real. In his manifesto, he's literally like, prepare yourself. You got people preparing for a race war. You have people calling for a race war. Now, of course, I don't hope for this and I don't wish for this, but it's important for us, especially women, to understand what's going on, especially those who are in the dating market, those who are playing around with the idea of dating out or marrying out. You know what I mean? Like, you got to know what's going on. You got to know that not everybody is seeing you as a viable option. You have plenty of people out there who don't even see you as American by nature of you not being white. As I mentioned in his manifesto, he literally said, American is white. If you are not white, you are not American, by his own words. So you have a significant amount of people in America who believe that unless you are a white person, culturally and ethically white, you are not American. Now, of course, that's crazy. But nonetheless, there are people who believe that and are willing to act upon it. So to act as if this is not a thing, when it is growing, and people as young as 18 are being radicalized off this ideology. We got to acknowledge it for what it is, and we got to acknowledge that it exists. And I will say this. How do I put it? Like, this is where I think, more importantly, I see how destructive it is to have the gender war, because, look, I will say this, even I think of my own family, right? Like, there's certain things that I do, there's certain, things that I think I can do well, but I have a lot of limitations. There's a lot of things I don't understand. There's a lot of things, like, there's a way as a woman that I just naturally think. I have a conversation with my husband, and he'll ask me things, he'll bring things, he'll think about building and collaborating in different ways. And I'm just like, I never even really thought about that. And here's the thing, men and women think differently. Even one of the callers earlier, they were talking about, it would be good to talk about what would be a way to protect yourself, what would be a way to arm yourself, or what would be a way to prepare yourself in a way so that you're not so vulnerable. These are the kind of times, right? It's like, it would be more helpful if there was a collaborative community, right? It would be more helpful if there wasn't such dissension and there was a stronger bond between men and women, and there was an understanding that, hey, men do offer protection. They build society. I don't care how else you put it. The way that they think, the way that they are, the way that they're naturally put together, they operate in such a way to bring society in protection and solutions in a way that I think women don't naturally. I don't want to say that we can't think that way, but we don't operate that way. And so I think, especially in a time like this, where now more than ever, it would be safer to be collaborating, to be working together, to be finding out ways to say, here's my strength, here's your strength, how do we build? Now more than ever, when you see this silly gender war going on, and this whole idea that Black girl magic, I can do bad all by myself, then you may actually do bad by yourself, because it's actually kind of dangerous out there, and you don't want to be caught alone, especially in certain situations, or at the very least, you don't want to put a target on your back. So that's a whole nother conversation. If you want to talk about what does a productive team look like, that's a whole other conversation. But like I said, y'all, it's been good. Y'all. Anyways, this has been a good conversation. Like I said, that was my last call. I could only do one more call. So I appreciate all of you guys who were here, who were hanging out, who were showing some support. If I wasn't able to get you on this time, no worries. I'll try to get you on next time we do this. This has been fun. I'm just seeing some different stuff come through. Oh man, Mr. Z back in effect. I'm just now seeing you. I have to sign off, but don't worries. We're gonna have another talk later on this week. So if time permits, I can bring you on. You can share your thoughts. Anyways, guys, this has been good. Thank you for all of your love and support and your perspective, yada, yada, yada. Stay tuned for upcoming content. Stay tuned for upcoming lives. As always, hit the notification button, hit the like button. And yeah, I got other stuff happening. I'm trying to think if I got everything else. I'll be up next time. Okay, yeah. Got you next time, Mr. T. Got you next time. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk later. Bye.